This is about the piece called Release by Afro Celt sound system. Listen to the recording of this before you watch this video. There's no recording with the score, but a link is given below. And then listen to the set work after you've watched this video as well. And also look at the mind map, a link for which is also given below. Melody. Use of nonsense lyrics. The main verse is syllabic. That means one note per syllable. There are some spoken parts, short phrases. The range for the female vocal is limited, a sixth. The male has a more extended range of a 13th, over an octave. In fact, 1 octave more than the female vocal. There are vocal samples. That means a short recording has been made of a singer and is played back. The melody is very repetitive. There's a sense of improvisation from opening female vocals. Use of glissando, that's sliding. Use of ornamentation, there's a acciaccatura, which is often used. And that is a small note played very quickly before the main note. And the use of reverb is very obvious for the whole track. That's to do with the recording techniques as well. Rhythm and meter. There's free time at the start. Steady tempo is established at, I think it's bar 50. That's 100 beats per minute. Simple quadruple meter. Slightly swung semiquavers. So instead of da 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 da, it's da 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 da. Gives a lilting, relaxed quality to the music. We have syncopation, triplets, sextuplets, accents, rhythmic ostinato, the patterns repeated over and over again. Use of loops. This also is about repetition, but it's the playing over and over again of a recorded track rather than a live ostinato. And then there's the use of riffs as well. And my understanding of the word riff is that it is an ostinato with a pitch pattern, such as might be played, for example, by a bass guitar. There are short rhythmic phrases, and the phrases are 2 and 4 bars in length. There's nothing written about dynamics here. Context, Afro Celt sound system. Yes, you can look these things up yourself. There's various details there. Nothing written about articulation, except we've just read that there are accents. And regarding texture, it's constantly changing. There's use of layering, different parts on top of each other. There are loops, we've talked about that already. The main texture is homophonic. There's a heterophonic texture during the outro. That is a texture which is seldom ever in existence in older classical music. With heterophony, different parts play more or less the same melody at the same time, but with different decorations, different ornamentation, slightly different notes. And there's much of the piece is a polyphonic texture. Structure. There is a distinct verse form. It contains an intro, solos, breaks, and an outro. There are no choruses in this piece, and the piece contains 3 verses. So let's take a look at this. So intro, verse 1, verse 2, there's solos, verse 3, there's a build, and then there's the outro. And there are all kinds of details there. I'll read a bit of this. The intro starts with a drone. It uses 2 different synth tones. I think that means synthesizer. An electronic instrument used for creating sounds, often a keyboard. And these are used to sweep through all the frequencies in a tone and modulate the sound by removing and then adding higher harmonic content while always keeping the lower part or fundamental. To give a very approximate demonstration of this, listen to what I'm doing. Only it's done electronically. And the filtering is often timed so that when the left is adding treble, the higher notes, the right is removing it, and vice versa. This intro is in free time, a steady C drone without modulation. And by the way, modulation here doesn't mean changing key, it means playing around with the frequencies of the notes in a way that I've just described, and perhaps other ways too. So the drone fades in gradually from about bar 19. Layering of parts increase the texture as talking drum, synth strings drone, vocal samples, spoken, are added. Boron and a shaker. Yes, the boron is the Irish drum. The shaker and the drum machine help to establish the steady tempo, bar 50. And there's female vocalization, which enters using heavy reverb. Reverb is a bit like the boomy sound you get when you're in the staircase of a multi-story car park. When your voice, well, you'd say echoes, but it's not really echo, it's reverb. And this is panned centrally with synthesizer and drum loops. Panning, as I've mentioned in another video, is all about how you send a signal through speakers. So here you'd have it equally going through the left and the right, but if you turn it all the way to the left, the sound only goes through the left speaker. If you turn it all the way to the right, it only goes through the right. This was the Killer Queen video, by the way. If the signal goes only through one speaker, it sounds as though the instrument that you hear is on the left or the right, whereas if it's going through both, it'll sound as though it's straight ahead. And in that way, you can have one instrument going out the left and another instrument going out the right, and perhaps another one sounding as though it's straight on, which gives a stereo effect. So that was the intro, and you should go very carefully through all the details of all the different sections there. I won't do so now. We'll talk about harmony when we get to tonality. Now, instrumentation, there's a great video here which takes you through all the different instruments used in the piece. The African instruments, etc., etc. Now, there are African forces, there's a kora, there's something about that there, click on that video. Talking drum, you can click on that video. Then there are Celtic forces, all those instruments there, the hurdy-gurdy, the uilleann pipes, the boron, the fiddle, the whistle and the accordion, those are all separate videos. The Western dance forces, there's a male voice, female voice, synthesizers including string pad, soft pad, bells, string bass. There are breath samples, there's a drum machine, electric piano, shaker, tambourine. So that was the Western dance forces, then before that was Celtic, then before that was African. Much of the piece is made from looping. As I said already, that's recording a sample and then playing it back over and over again. Playing techniques include glissando, ornamentation, double stopping, that means playing more than one note at once, and open and closed hi-hat. That kind of sound is created. Range, we've mentioned already that the female vocals have a range of a sixth and the men have a 13th, which is a sixth and an octave. And then there's tonality. Right. Diatonic, that means using the scale of a key, and the key is C minor. But maybe not quite in the traditional classical sense. There is a modal feel. And the word modal is used to describe how scales are used when they're not exactly the same as the traditional classical minor scales or even major scales. Chord sequences are repetitive. There's a hint of chromaticism. That means notes used, or some of the notes used don't belong to the scale, but only a hint of it. And there's the use of extended chords, sevenths and ninths, for example. So if I sing, da, 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 that's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. There's a slow harmonic pulse, which means the chords don't change very quickly. And there's much use of drone, which is a long note held on and on and on as other things change around it. We've already mentioned word setting. The word setting is syllabic, that means one note per syllable, and often there are nonsense syllables, nonsense words. So now listen to the piece again and explore this mind map yourselves. The links are below.